Bismillah wa salatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brothers and sisters at ISB and ISBC, and all who are watching us live right now. Uh, 2 weeks ago, I started my journey with Brother Michael Wolfe. I introduced him a couple of times, and still the journey didn't stop. And those are the blessed 10 days and nights, العشر Dhul-Hijjah. كل عام وحضراتكم بخير. Eid al Mubarak, inshallah, and Allah accept from you all what you are doing and you will be doing during those 10 days and nights. And reflecting on Brother Michael's journey, which is like awesome, touched many of our hearts. And actually, it's a transformational journey that he went through, and he's trying to reflect with us on what he went through and what he felt and how this impacted his life in a very positive way, spirituality. And would like to continue. In the last episode, we stopped at Muzdalifah and Jamarat. During his journey with ABC, filming the Hajj for the first time, we have American cameras inside Saudi Arabia. And he was the one Haji, young at that age, of course, like he was the one Haji who was like the star, I would say the movie star of this journey. Brother Michael, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for being with us for the third time, continuing the journey.
Thank
I
you
really
for having
appreciate
me.
that.
I enjoy reminiscing about the Hajj. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. So you shared with us wonderful stories like from the start, how did you compile the team? How did you deal with the request from the Saudi embassy? And then the trip, what happened in Jeddah airport. And now we went through the Hajj until last episode. I told you that we need to continue that, what happened in Muzdalifah. And I know that it's not an easy task at the time to film the Jamarat. So I need to listen and hear from you. And for those who performed Hajj, they understand that what is the Nafra, what is going to Muzdalifah and staying there. And for those who did not get the chance to go to Hajj up to now, may Allah bless them for this, and we make dua for them so that Allah will make it easy for them and to perform Hajj, inshallah. So, Michael, walk us through what happened in Rami al-Jamarat, throwing the stones.
Well, it was, we went very early because we knew that it would be crowded, and we didn't film on the first day. You can film, we were able to film any of 3 days. We just needed a short clip to introduce Americans who don't know much about the Hajj or anything about the Hajj, what the significance is of what we're doing, and also what it is physically that we are doing. And as your listeners know well, the Jamarat is lively, it's athletic, and at the time that I did it, it was difficult to control. When I say control, it was difficult to monitor or moderate the number of people entering a very narrow space, all of whom were enthusiastic and in a state in some way of release. I think the emotion was of a kind of athletic release. So filming there, we tried to hedge our bets. We tried to make it a little easier on ourselves by going the second day and going early. And as a result, we didn't really have difficulty. We got in pretty quickly. We didn't have police to make way for us or anything like that. I mean, we just made our way. Most of the time, it was the 4 of us, a field director, a cameraman, a sound man, and myself. And to give people a feel for the Jamarat, for this sense of how, on the one hand, vulnerable and pure you are coming out of Muzdalifah and coming off of Arafat, how on the one hand very clean you are, and on the other hand, when you're in a very clean state, it's very easy to be susceptible, to be vulnerable. And the Jamarat is a piece of genius, in my opinion.
Mm.
because as a rite, it comes at a point in the Hajj where you need to protect yourself from all of the temptations and some of them silly and some of them really fatal that can grab hold of a person's soul, without even looking sometimes. Um, the Jamarat is an exercise in pushing temptation back, in showing shaitan or who's boss in a way, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a very physical event. And just to make the point, you do it 3 times, not just once. So it's a very important rite.
Did your cameraman throw stones at that time? Was he performing Hajj with you?
No,
No,
he
he's not.
he had already done his. Our cameraman, Bishar Al Tuni, is an Egyptian. He was a great person to be in the desert with. He was a geologist by trade before he became a cameraman. So he was able to tell me what I was seeing often in terms of the landscape and how dunes were formed. And he was, full of knowledge about geology
Mm.
and also an excellent cameraman. Um, Bishar was making the Hajj along the way. And I can't imagine a greater jihad than that.
Mm. Yeah,
It's certainly up there
yeah.
because oftentimes you have to be in front of the crowd, and he was very um, precise about this, and he did complete the Hajj um, in a respectful and appropriate way. Meanwhile, doing all the filming. So he had gotten a little bit ahead of us, and it was fine. We didn't really have any problems in the actual Jamarat. We did have a little trouble at that site a few days before, because in the event that the Jamarat was too crowded, um, we thought we should, and we got permission to enter the Jamarat and film me throwing stones so that millions of people back in the United States could see what this was all about. We didn't want to miss it. We didn't want to, at the last moment, be unable to include that important part. So that's where we had trouble. We not during the actual Jamarat, but we went a few days early and filmed it, and we were. I don't know how else to put this. We were arrested. Um, yeah, this happened a few times while we were there. Um,
Yeah.
and it was understandable. It never really irritated me because um, we had pieces of paper from higher ups in the Ministry of Information that allowed us to do everything we were doing. But then there were the policemen on the beat, the non-officers, the non-com policemen who sometimes couldn't read, for one thing, and for another thing, really liked their job and wanted to keep it. And here were these 4 guys with cameras and microphones, and what were they doing? So they occasionally, one of these officers, he wasn't really an officer, he was like a lieutenant or private, but would just say, "Well, listen, I'm to himself. I think he would say, I better be careful here. I better take these people in. If they're okay, it's okay. If they're not, and I don't take them in, I could get in a lot of trouble and lose my job." And that's how I always looked at it, that they were just doing their job. But it was pretty funny to see my cameraman up on his little 3-foot ladder, to get some height to the shot, falling backwards into the arms of these policemen
Wow.
with a pretty heavy camera. But he was good, he didn't, the camera didn't
Yeah.
break.
Wow.
We got in a car, we went to the police station again. This was the third or fourth time. And the arresting officer was then, as happened before, put in charge of being sure that everyone understood for the rest of the day that we had permission to do this.
Awesome.
Um, so
That's indeed like very, very remarkable moments. I think you and the chef, like you're still talking, those are like moments to remember.
it's a little behind the scenes. you really don't want to know how movies are made, you know. You don't. Okay?
But tell me, yeah, definitely.
They're not part of the story, you
Yeah,
know.
this is like definitely.
So I'm just taking you, you know, a
So
moment.
I would like to fast forward this a little bit, Brother Michael, and say that's fine, done. The movie is done, and now you're back into the United States. So I need to know first the reflections from three angles. One, what happens to Michael before and after? Two, what about your neighbors, your coworkers, your colleagues, your family members, and what did they say when they watched the movie? And three, like nationwide, what was the feedback that you received and what did you learn from that?
Okay, well, let me take it backwards. In terms of nationally, this was a national broadcast. And it was the first time that American cameras had ever been inside Mecca. So it was kind of a big deal. And it was a Friday night special, they called them. On Friday nights, ABC News devoted Nightline to a single topic. And this time it was the Hajj. So I think 8 million people saw it. And then I think teachers recognized that it was the right size to use in a classroom. It's only 20, 25 minutes long. So there's room to conduct a class and show the video. So it had quite a long life as a teaching device, I guess you would say, in classrooms, in high schools, and in colleges. And I got, I was notified in various ways of these things going on. So it was, and it was nominated for a lot of awards as well. So that said to me that the American public was ready to hear something different, you know, about Muslims and about Islam. It was a very positive program. It had nothing to do with politics. It had everything to do with people and faith. And I think the American audience, kind of mainstream, not Muslim audience, welcomed that. This was 1997, a long time ago, um, and
Did this turn you into a celebrity? Like people knows you on the street and say that, hey, we know you, we recognize you, stuff like
thank
that?
God, no. I, and you know why? Because I was in Iran.
Oh, yeah.
You see, people they didn't.
They
I
won't relate.
I
They won't
remember the
relate.
first
Yeah.
time I got out of my car in a gas station in the town I lived in, and thinking, I really hope nobody recognizes me. And I, this is a few days after I got home. I was still sensitive to the idea,
Yeah.
and I filled up my car and got back in and drove away. And that was really true all the way along the line. So I never had to suffer that terrible consequence of being on television, which is really bad. I mean, it's just the worst.
Yeah, that's
Um,
right. What
and
about like, yeah,
and,
what about you
Well, let me
yourself?
take you a little bit back. So,
Sure.
in terms of my family, they were all watching. Um, at this time, um, the war in Bosnia was going on, and we had a Bosnian student living with us in California. So she watched it with my wife and a couple of friends, and I thought, I don't know, that warmed my heart somehow that she was watching as well. Um, I got a lot of emails, a lot of letters, a lot of phone calls. People liked it, and I didn't really have. I felt glad to be a part of it. I felt glad to be able to show these guys around because they had never been in Mecca, and I felt blessed for the opportunity to be there for 3 whole weeks and see the Hajj go from beginning to middle to end and past end because we were filming, every day, and there were a couple of things that happened that were real blessings to me during this event. One was we were able to interview some American soldiers who were in Iraq, and they were African American. They came to Hajj from Iraq. Well, they went to Germany and then they came to, but you know, they came from duty. This was before, you know, the second Iraq War and all of that. They were guards, I think, primarily. And to meet these guys in Iran and speak with them and hear their their beautiful faith, you know, it was really moving to me. Um, and the second thing that I wanted to say was because I was attached to this news team, and because we were there on what I would call in English washing day, you know, when they sweep out the
Mm.
Kaaba, I was able to go into the Kaaba, which I never would have been able to do otherwise. So
Wow.
you know, I was there for a few fleeting moments. Well, and so were other people, but you know, it was possible to actually um, step inside. And I had always wondered. I mean, we all know that the Kaaba is empty. I mean, we're not worshiping the Kaaba for God's sake. This is a marker. It marks the place. It's the house that shows our respect and the sacredness of this place and time. And we gather around it and we circle around it. Um, but at the same time, there was something pretty special about that. And and I know it would I wouldn't rate, you know,
Mm.
normally I'm just a Haji like anybody else. But this time, because we were the guests of the Department of Information, I managed to kind of sneak in for a few, you know, for a minute to see that.
Wow. And this is like you got the chance to go inside because like you're part, you have the permit to do that. We're having a permit
Well,
from.
you know, there was a cordon, a rope around the area, and they were literally really sweeping it out. Uh,
Mm.
and they were allowing a few dignitaries, I guess you would say, you know, the Secretary of State from Libya or something,
Mm.
or, you know, a minister from Egypt. There were certain people who they were allowing to come in,
Okay.
right? And so I kind of tagged along behind them and I was able to do that.
So spirituality, Michael, what happened to you before and after? Like you were Muslim, and then you went this trip definitely with an intention to show the Americans like what's Hajj look like, and then you came after that. So what transformation that happened to you before and after?
Well, you know, this second Hajj was very special because in 1990, this is 1997. In 1990, I had performed my Hajj, the Hajj um, that really solidified my Islam for me. I honestly can say that until I made the Hajj, because I was a new Muslim, you know, I was 2 or 3 years into this, and I knew my prayers and I was doing them, but you know, the experience of being in Mecca with 2 or 3 million people was I kind of liken it to I don't know, like you know, when you bake a cake, you've got all the ingredients, you know, you've got the flour and you've got the sugar and you've got all the parts, but until you put it in the oven, all of that doesn't really come together. And I felt that's what the Hajj did for me. You know, it put all the parts together, infused them in me in a way that was natural and real. So my second time there, I was really working in a way. I decided that I was going to have to do this 100%, that I was telling a story for millions of people who knew nothing about it. And the better I did that job, um, the more fulfilled I would be. And I had already made the Hajj. So whereas my cameraman Bisher um, performed the Hajj, you know, I mean, he was never coming back. He had never been there before. This was his chance. For myself, I had performed the Hajj, so I did not try to perform the Hajj. I couldn't have performed the Hajj and done what I did because often I had to be in front of the crowd, ahead of where I should have been. in the order of the pilgrimage. Um, uh, it was a lot of hard work. It was jihad, you know? And that's how
I
I
like
had,
this.
yeah,
I
that's
like
how I
this
had to
metaphor.
approach it.
I like this metaphor about like baking a cake because actually for many, Hajj for them is something that changed them totally. Although like even being Muslim for years, everyone I've been seeing posts even on social media for people like who miss their Hajj or like they are talking about how Hajj journey transformed their lives totally into a positive, different stage. And
Yes.
how do you feel about that when there's no Hajj this year?
Well, uh, it's very disappointing. It's very understandable, and it's not the first time. This has happened before in the history of the Hajj. In fact, it's even happened in terms of pandemics. In the 19th century, there was a period of, our word quarantine hasn't been with us forever. It started in the 1840s when you were supposed to take 40 days out. Well, that's one explanation of the derivation. But all of the Hajj boats one year had to stay off of the coast for 40 days. And then when they came ashore, they were washed and um, fumigated as well, And finally, after when the cholera epidemic became so great, they stopped the Hajj, not just for one year, for a couple of years. Because the pandemic was, because there were so many people in one place, it was
Yeah,
cooking the disease, and then people were going back home with it.
that's right.
And you would have had a global pandemic of proportions that we are not experiencing right now. Cholera is a little different story. And so there have been occasions when the Hajj has stopped. And I feel, I know people who are planning to go with their families. I have friends in Seattle, and for example, who I think of almost every day because they were intending to be there right now,
Mm.
and they can't. So I, when I speak with them, I'm impressed with how well they take it. Next year, inshallah, is what they say, basically.
Yeah,
Uh, I went on an umrah with a special needs group in November of last year, actually early December, and that was my first time to be in Mecca in quite a few years, and I'm so glad that we decided. We almost did. We almost said, "Oh, we'll go next year," but I don't know, now how that would have been.
yeah,
So, so I was able to be there one more time. And my feeling is that when you've made the Hajj, it is a transformative experience. It certainly was for me. I came back feeling very natural about being a Muslim in the United States, which was already, a little bit of a tough place to be a Muslim. I don't mean only socially. I mean, during Ramadan, for instance, at the time that I'm talking of, 1990, you were one of the few people in your community who was fasting, unless you were inside a mosque, and
mm,
I was not yet. I'd only been a Muslim for a couple of years. I hadn't found my mosque yet. So I was really fasting solo, right?
mm.
There were a lot of things that because I didn't have a community yet, a real, shapely community with a history for me of it,
Yeah,
um, it was tough. When I got back from Hajj, it wasn't tough anymore. And I felt comfortable going into mosques in a way that I hadn't before. I was always welcome. It wasn't that. It was that after Mecca, I felt comfortable with the whole idea of the Ummah. It was so natural to me after.
mashallah,
So that
mashallah.
you know, that's one of the places where I took it. Certainly, a person who had been born and raised a Muslim in a Muslim country would have a very different experience from mine. But that's why we talk. That's why we share.
That's
Uh,
right. That's
right.
right.
It's
Yeah. I
It's
have
so. I always ask people, well, how was it for you? Because you
It's
know,
different. It's totally different. Yeah, I can tell you stories like about my Hajj and my wife and stuff like that. So Michael is saying, one of our audience, Michael Zainab Mariam, Alaikum Salam, Rahma Barakatuh, and is saying Amin. And then we have attorney Ilham Sufan. She said nice. Apparently she likes what you are talking. Thank you, attorney Ilham. It's a pleasure to have you like watching our episode. So before leaving you go, Mike, I know that you have we hold you prisoner for some time, hostage for some time in our
thank
episode.
you.
So,
I'm a willing prisoner.
oh, thank you, sir. So, what message do you have for the people that who are looking upwards for Hajj, and what message do you have for the people who who did Hajj and still missing it, and for fellow Americans like who know nothing about Hajj and they will be watching and hearing those days about what Muslim used to do, and most likely there will be some airing because like Hajj is allowed for only people inside Saudi Arabia this year. So, what message do you have for them?
Well, I would here would be my message for for this year, this very special year for Muslims. There are a few thousand. Well, we don't know what the number is, but let's say a few thousand people performing Hajj this year. They're primarily people who are from Jeddah, Mecca, Saudi Arabia, the Hijaz. There are Hajis who are going to perform the Hajj. So it's our pleasure and our duty to celebrate the Eid for them. I've always thought of this as a Haji, the Eid. I mean, when I say always, the number of years that I've been a Muslim, the Eid really came home for me on the Hajj because here we were in a kind of retreat, in an isolated place, far away from the world, not watching the news, not concerned with the events of the day, not thinking about around the world what's going on,
Yeah,
but very concentrated in a spiritual setting. And as I say, in a retreat. And then to be kind of suddenly reminded that we're having a feast now, we're celebrating, and that everyone around the world who's a Muslim is thinking of us right now. This
yeah,
comparatively small group of people, maybe a million people, but comparatively small number of Muslims, everyone who is Muslim is thinking of us right now. They're giving us their prayers and they're excited for us. They're happy for us. So I think we need to up the volume of our gladness and our
yeah.
our friendship with
Yeah,
the.
that's right. And yeah, this I can't agree more with you. And I think this is the time that we have to show that we are happy, although like what we are passing through, but this is the time that we have to celebrate. Unfortunately, the time just came, Michael, and as I told you, like thank you very much for sharing with us those 3 episodes. We learned a lot. For those who missed them, please go back to the ISBC um, page or the YouTube channel and please watch them. Michael like has amazing insights performing Hajj, and his journey is transformational one. Thank you, Michael, very much. I really appreciate that,
Thank
and
you.
hope to see you again. Thank
I
you,
hope
Michael.
so too. We can talk about other things.
Sure, definitely. We'll arrange that. Thank you, Michael.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
very much.
Thank you, sir.
Assalamu alaikum.